Welcome to Inspiration Inc. I have a very special guest with me today. The guest who's at, I would say, foundation of the new age entrepreneurs in India. I have Deep Kalra with me of MakeMyTrip. Deep, thank you so much. It's a pleasure having you on this show.
It's my pleasure.
The show is called Inspiration Inc. So, I mean, you know the kind of questions I'm going to ask. But first of all, I have a very basic question. After you passed out of IIM and you had a good job like you always wanted, a nice corporate job, ABN AMRO and all. So, what made you quit that job within 3 years of joining? Because usually, I understand that there is always an urge to do something different, something of your own and all, but that starts creeping in to somebody's head after maybe 10 years, 15 years. Within 3 years, what made you actually take a break for 1 year?
Yeah, no, I think it's took me a while to introspect and realize why I took that decision later. But with the benefit of hindsight, I think I figured that I'm one of those people who, if I have to love what I'm doing, to be able to give 100%. And everyone's not the same. I know many people who might find their job a little dry, but they're saying this is a good job, it's a very good job, and they can keep going, and I envy those people. So I get restless very quickly. So I think what started happening with banking was I was getting restless in 2.5 years into that job, and 6 months I struggled because I didn't want to leave. I really liked ABN AMRO.
Right.
First jobs are very special. I had a fantastic team. My boss was this inspirational, Mr. Ramesh Sopti, and everyone's kind of considers him one of the best bankers.
Correct.
And he was a wonderful mentor too, and he still is. But I realized I don't want to be a banker all my life. And I was still very young, so I was all of 26. So I decided to hop off banking. I did something very unconventional, but I did 2 more jobs. So I still didn't ever think that I'm going to turn entrepreneur. That was clearly not in my mind. It was an entrepreneurial job. I got an opportunity with an American company called AMF Bowling to bring them into India to start these family entertainment centers around 10-pin bowling.
Right.
And I thought that'll do awesome, and clearly I misread the market. We were too early. And the cost of real estate in India even today is too expensive to justify many things to take on lease and to run a business. I got one break, which I admire G Capital for giving me a break with a fairly unconventional career, 3 years banking, 4 years AMF bowling. And I worked with them for only about 1.5 years. And that's when I think I started getting the itch. I was introduced to the internet formally at G.
Correct.
And this was about 99. I was dabbling in the internet like all of us were informally in our personal lives. And I think that's when I realized that big corporates are probably not for me.
Correct.
And the internet presented a really interesting opportunity, I think a platform where one could start your own business with very little capital.
Correct.
How things have changed today. But so in 2000 I took the plunge again. I was only about 30. I was short of 30. Yeah, I was 30. And I think you can do these things when you're young. That's the benefit of youth.
I have met so many people who, after passing out of, let's say, IIMs or IITs, and especially when they join a financial service company, after that the first logical step for them is to actually think of a business, even if they are thinking of business, on the financial service side.
Sure.
And I think during that time India was growing, at least on that track, but you chose something very unconventional. So I understand in between you had your stint and all, but were you always convinced that this is the space you want to be in, something driven by internet and travel, leisure basically?
Yeah, I think the degree from IIM, and particularly IIM Ahmedabad, gives you a lot of insurance. So I consider it more as an insurance policy, and when you're young you can pretty much get back to corporate life. There were some really good examples who had done a great job. So Rashesh and Nirmal, both of whom I know, had set up fantastic financial companies and were already doing well.
I had Rashesh last week on the show.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, I know him. And I think the calling for me was, one, to do my own thing. And it was either going to be actually online stockbroking.
Correct.
Or
so now you know why I asked.
No, absolutely. And I was thinking of online stockbroking. Actually, my thesis was very simple. What were the businesses or what were the trading activities that were being done on the phone?
On the phone,
and which would probably move to the internet first.
Exactly.
Few people were online. So to imagine that people would go straight from shopping, something that they did with touch and feel, straight away online, was a big leap, and I didn't think that was going to happen too soon.
Correct.
So I thought of these two, and frankly, I chose travel. I wrote a business plan for both, really detailed business planning for both. That was I think the MBA training. But I think travel was just so much more exciting. I mean, I've always been a fond traveler, and I said, if you're going to have fun, then go all the way, kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. So two things. One is, like you said, that time internet was still at a very primary stage in India. And second, even the travel habits of Indians, though they used to travel even then, but the travel habits were also, I would say, very, very basic, and obviously not online, and it was a very informal sort of market. So what gave you that inspiration that, okay, this is the space where you can actually go and change things? Because, it virtually started a new industry in India when you started MakeMyTrip.
Right. Now you're spot on. The way things have changed, the way people are traveling, it's not only what, so one is the new age. So when we call the millennials, or now it's called Gen Z, which is after the millennials, even younger. So the way people are traveling today is fundamentally different. And the number of breaks you're taking per year is fundamentally different. So this is like the average young person in a corporate job who's earning reasonably well, it could be a techie with us or someone in a call center, etc., is actually taking anywhere between 4 to 6 breaks a year, including weekend breaks.
Right.
I have met people, so I meet the new folks who join, we do an induction meeting. I've met someone who proudly said, I took 13 breaks in the last year.
Wow.
And that's awesome. And they said, why not? I have the weekend and I'd go. So I think the younger folks are thinking a lot more like their Western counterparts.
Correct.
Have money, have time, will travel. And they really want to travel because they want to see, and they're into adventure travel, they're into very interesting kind of places. But even the previous generation, so folks in my generation are also now traveling much more. More money, more affordability, great connectivity. So India has never enjoyed such great connectivity. Today we've got more than 100 airports that are connected by scheduled aircrafts. Secondly, road network. I think there's been a dramatic rollout of new roads, which has helped people pick up car and drive and to go out. I think we made it much easier for people to research and to book. Correct. So I think we've taken away a lot of the pain, which was always one of the, I think, original vision was to become the first port of call for people to travel to India, from India and within India. 2000 to 2005, there were probably only 100 tickets which were sold online in India. It's really in 2005. Yeah, no one was buying online.
Right.
But because I think it takes time, critical mass, confidence to pay online. So I give credit to IRCTC for getting people comfortable to pay online.
Correct.
And I think 2005 onwards, with low-cost carriers, things have changed. Today, India has probably the cheapest airfares in the world.
Immediately after you started off, unfortunately you sort of ran into a headwind because the dot-com bubble was there, and that created, I would say that created fundamentally a lot of ripple effects throughout the world, and obviously you were also not spared. At that point, what kept you on track? Because it's in such situations that actually your conviction, your vision, everything comes under a sort of cloud, and you start questioning yourself. So if you can just share with us, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think, again, hindsight is a great teacher. And in hindsight, you realize what kept one going between 2001. So within a year of starting, the whole world around imploded for us. Dot-com bust, like you said. Apparently, we were one of the last companies to get some funding. So we had $2 million, which was a lot of money then. Is today's pocket change, of course. I think the SARS epidemic impacted people who were traveling to India over the east.
Correct.
And then 9/11. 9/11 actually put the fear of God into people to get onto a plane in the US for a while. And a lot of our customers were based there at that point of time. So I think things were actually quite bleak. Rationality suggested that we should have packed up. Our investor, eVentures, at that time, they said that we'd like to recall whatever money we can, pull out, and our LPs, limited partners, have decided that we have to exit all internet businesses. One was very naive then, didn't really understand how these things work, and it felt patently unfair because it seemed like we were really onto something. Things were going well, week on week we were improving. We were definitely getting to a stage where I think we were going to accelerate further. And it seemed like we just needed to bridge a chasm of probably a year or so to get to, break even and then be on our own. We had a team of about 42 people then. We were in an office in Okla Phase 1. And I discussed with everyone very candidly. I shared with them that, listen, things are bleak. Senior people will have to take cuts. Junior guys will not take cuts but won't get raises. And we actually shrank and went into the mezzanine, which was at 11 rupees per square foot. So the cheapest real estate ever. And it was truly a mezzanine. If I stretched my arms upwards, I touched the ceiling. If I moved sideways, I could touch the side. So it was a long hall.
Right.
We called it like a railway bogie.
More like a corridor.
Yeah, so we lost more than half the people overnight. We shrunk from 42, okay, we lost about 18 people. We shrunk from 40 to 24. I think the brighter side in these things. So I got great support from these folks. We all took cuts. Someone took a 50% cut. I managed to take a 100% cut. I had some savings. And we put all the money that we had into the business. We bought it back from the VCs. From 2001 to 2005, we were truly bootstrapped. First 2 years, we literally, I can't even tell you how tough it was. That was the period of no salaries and all. But what kept us going really, and this is something which I do share with young entrepreneurs, is instinct and gut is very important. So instinct and gut will tell you, are you on the right track? But your validation will come from numbers and metrics. So if your instinct is there and you're saying, yes, we're onto something, follow your gut, but validate it with numbers. That means, are you actually improving? And it's very hard to improve daily in our business.
Right.
We track our business, by the way, even then we tracked it hourly. Today we track it by minute.
You were one of the first entrepreneurs to list on the US markets also, NASDAQ. So how your life changed after that listing? Because generally this space is, the first recall for anybody would be the private funding or the VC funding and things like that. But you chose a more formal, more transparent and actually a more stricter way of getting your funding. So how your life changed?
You're absolutely right. It's more challenging, and listing in the US, whether it's NYSE, in our case NASDAQ, which is more the tech exchange, was something which a lot of people warned us. This is very cumbersome.
Correct. What are you getting into?
Yeah, what are you getting into? Are you ready for it? And I think including on our board, I had people on our board tell us in late 2009 is when we started thinking about it. I think the more we were kind of told that, listen, try to list in India, which we could do, listing overseas is very onerous. I think that was the main thing, that SOX compliance, etc., will really, really bow you down. But I think that kind of got us even more excited. Rajesh and me, Rajesh was CFO then, and we said, listen, we know we run a... I
have to do this.
We run a clean... Yeah, exactly. It became almost like we have to do this. And we were very confident that we ran a really tight, clean shop. Our processes were tight. We knew we could learn and make them better. But the excitement was, one, of course, to list and to give liquidity to all your stakeholders, not just your shareholders, but also your employees. Importantly, then it puts you in a different peer club almost. So then you're with the international peers, you're actually considered in that same set. So whether it's Priceline Booking or it's Expedia or C-Trip or us and TripAdvisor, it's a pretty interesting place to be. You learn a lot, you also lift your own game. And then thirdly, you have the currency then to either raise money when you want. It's fairly easy to do so. You don't have to worry so much about, can we or not, and use that currency even to do large M&A. So I think for us, all of that was an exciting feeling.
So, actually when you started off, that time the word startup was not even known in India. I mean, nobody spoke about startups. Now a lot of things have changed, and now we talk of billions of dollars of valuations and all. So currently, what is your take on this entire, I wouldn't call it startup ecosystem, so I call it new age entrepreneurs.
Sure.
Now, what is your take on that? Currently, where are we? If we look at the spectrum, where are we?
Yeah, so we've definitely come a long, long way. I think the new age economy has truly emerged. Gone are the days where you said, there's one company which is listed, there's another company which is breaking out, one company is listed in India, and that's what we used to hear. I've heard from VCs, pardon me, who became friends, I've heard from these VCs actually comments like, nothing's really happening in India. And desktop searches had slowed down. This is not so long ago, and thankfully mobile internet took off. I mean, today, from that lowest point where VCs were staying away, smart VCs were saying really nothing's happening, we'll wait a few years and we'll focus on other markets like China or the US, etc. Today there's no hotter place to be.
Correct.
China is slowing down, which was probably going to happen. But anyone who's interested in the new age economy, whether it's large company, so including, as you know, Amazon's obviously been here for the longest time, or Uber, or Facebook. I read the other day for Facebook, India is their largest market in the world. All of them have, and Google of course, have their eyes trained on India in a massive way, as do all the capital providers. So whether you're early stage investors or you're mid stage, Series A, Series B, or even late stage and growth capital. So everyone's here and everyone's focused on this market for obvious reasons. Very large middle class coming of age. Correct. I think long back McKinsey said 300 million people middle class. Today I think you can say that. Of that 300 million people, probably 100 million can afford to buy a product from us. But if you think of the entire internet market, maybe 150, 200 million. That's a big number. Now when that 100 million moves over the next 4 years, because economy will keep growing 7 to 8%, but the online economy can grow at double the rate. So if you compound that, in that 100 million can become 200 million in 4 years' time, which is pretty much the buying economy, online buying economy of the US today. Right. So there's no great secret why everyone's here. It's also moving fast because, like I said, the young people, and India has a very young population, 50% of India is under the age of 26. It's one of the youngest large economies in the world. So these people think very differently. When they get into their first job, whether it's when they're 18 or 21 or 23, and they're making money, they are actually looking at spending the last rupee, in fact even borrowing. So that's become pretty common. That was unheard of 10 years ago. And it was, anathema 20 years ago. So things have changed a lot.
Right. So what is your take going forward? Because now I think the technology and the way people use it or consume it, both are changing at a very rapid pace. In fact, sometimes it's changing even faster than what we can actually grasp at this point.
Yeah.
So what is your futuristic view on the, let's say, online business or the travel business or the e-commerce platforms?
Sure. Yeah, and that's what I guess is famously known as Moore's law. Yeah. So really the growth of technologies is exponential. So I think what's going to change is that the big are definitely going to become bigger. So there's a big premium of being number one, and not without reason, because there are a lot of economies of scale, not just on your process side, but even your ability to attract customers. And if you're doing a good job of whatever service you're giving, the brand value is very high. So when I look at travel, and I keep getting asked this question, why don't you do things beyond travel? Well, travel is one of those things which needs a very high trust quotient. Right. So to win trust of customers takes time, but once you have that trust, people don't want to move away till something really goes wrong. So we want to make that end-to-end journey very convenient. 3 months ago, we launched something called e-visa. So people can actually completely online get visas now for 6 countries from us.
From what I hear, I think the role of, let's say, artificial intelligence or algorithms and all is going to play a much more active role in the way your industry operates.
That's going to be the game changer. So we've got chatbots today on all our brands, and these chatbots are taking care of 10 to 20% of conversations post-sales. But chatbots should be helping you even pre-sales. Chatbots, because so many people in India like to chat. So thanks to WhatsApp, and people are very comfortable on a chatting interface. So they're saying, I actually find this quite complicated. Now that's not the top 100 million, but the next 100 million and the next 100 million might actually say, I'm quite happy to chat, which is, in their vernacular. So someone in Hindi will be actually talking to them saying, kahan jana hai? And it could happen in Tamil, it could happen in Gujarati, and the answers are coming in the same. They could even talk to that device. So all this is actually happening. Some of this we have live, some of this is in beta. I think that's going to be the game changer, not just more of the same.
Now if we talk about the future, and the reason I'm asking you this question is because you have covered a long journey. If you look at the internet economy in India, obviously the merger happened and now you have 3 major brands.
Yeah.
But What is that one ambition which still, I would say, gives you, if at all, gives you sleepless nights, or which I would say is still you are yet to realize?
No, absolutely. I think the day you have no ambitions left, then the purpose goes away. And for me, life is all about purpose and passion. So if you don't have these two, then life is pretty pointless. So there's still a lot of purpose. I believe we are still, you know, okay to good on the scale. So I think we are between a 6 and a 7 right now on a scale of 10.
Okay.
And so there's a long way to go, and it gets tougher. To
Right.
get to 4,
Yeah,
5 is fairly easy.
correct.
It gets tougher, right? The gradient gets steeper.
Correct.
So I think we've got to work really hard to fulfill the original dream. And the original dream is where every customer can be a brand ambassador. If we want that to happen, there's still a lot of work to be done. And that's what we are focused on right now. So the focus on consumer has never been higher at MakeMyTrip, at scale. The focus on consumers never been higher at Redbus or at GoIB. We are really, really fixated on it. So the lens is always the consumer for us. And as we can do that better, I think then you truly earn your chops of being a special company. So that's what we are passionate about.
What's your high point and low point in life?
During my MakeMyTrips?
Personally also, I mean, I would put it that way.
I get a personal level, it's actually all about family. So
Right.
that's clearly the most important thing. I think when you become a parent, you realize the joy you get from your children it's unparalleled. But from a company point of view, I think it's very satisfying to see the company where it is today. IPO was a financial high point, but getting ranked number 2 and then number 3 and number 6, like in 3 years in a row as a great place to work, was a great high point for me, because I think I always wanted to build a company where people are really, really happy doing what they're doing. So that's pretty special. We've seen some low points. 2001 was actually, shutdown was staring us in the eye. Then we went through some other periods which were pretty rough times with, I think, airlines running into rough weather, etc., and our business being only air dependent. That's why now today we are very diversified. Yeah, I think you learn much more in your low phases, and that's a reality. You know, when things are going great, it's a heady feeling, and a heady feeling means you're not really asking yourself, why have we done well? That happens much later. But when you're in the trenches and things are not going well and you're facing whatever stress it is, I think you come out of it definitely wiser. And I think endurance. So that becomes a really important quality for any entrepreneur.
What inspires you the most? I mean, is it any person, any book, or I mean, what's your personal inspiration?
So I think there are multiple people who I've got I read a lot about them. So one of them, well, I've read a lot, almost everything out there about Steve Jobs. I think that brilliance is something which is unique. You are born with it and you have it or you tap it. But then Jeff Bezos, I think at work, and Amazon, the kind of company they built, is also very inspirational. So I think I look at them. I think Infosys for me, when I was growing up and I was graduating from business school, was always that awesome Indian company which was set up by, 4 professionals, professors, and took on the world. And very importantly, everyone was very vested in the company. So there's a real Infosys culture. And so someone like, I've spent much more time with Nandan than with Murthy, but when I talk to Nandan, I find him really inspirational. So I'm quite happy to pick inspiration from many guys. Sanjeev Bikhchandani is one of those I turn to a lot. I mentioned Ramesh Sokti earlier. Ashish Dhawan, who's behind Ashoka, is a dear friend, but very inspirational the way, his kind of balances his own life and career. So I shamelessly take inspiration everywhere.
Right. So one last, not exactly question, but what would be your message to somebody who's watching this interview? And like you mentioned, India is a young country. There must be so many youngsters who are watching this show right now and probably thinking about their own dream.
Yeah.
What would you tell them?
Yeah, I would really say that for an entrepreneur, the critical thing is always to focus on the positives. I'll tell you why I say that. There are so many positives India has to offer today for anyone who wants to start up a new age business or build a career. There's so many opportunities today that please focus on that rather than lamenting about what is not right. Figure out what you want to do. It's got to be your own idea. Follow it with a lot of passion. Put a lot into it. Like I said, take a longer term view. This is definitely a marathon. Entrepreneurship is not sprints. It can be a series of sprints, but it's really a marathon. You've got to have that mentality. but focus on positives.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Deep. It's been pleasure actually speaking to you, and I hope those who are watching this show, some of them will actually go ahead and do something that we can't think of today, but which becomes an industry in itself tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you.